You've done it before. Walking down the aisle of a grocery store, staring at a shelf of peanut butter like it's the final question on a game show, and you mutter, "Do I want crunchy or creamy?" Maybe someone hears you and gives you that side eye like you've just confessed state secrets to a jar of Jif. But here's the truth. Talking to yourself isn't a sign you're losing your grip. It's actually proof that your brain is firing on all cylinders. The human mind is crowded. Thousands of thoughts crash into each other every single day. Most stay quiet, bouncing around like kids in a bouncy castle, wild and directionless, waiting for their turn to grab your attention. But sometimes the noise gets too loud, too restless, and it spills out. That's when your mouth takes over, becoming the loudspeaker for your brain's chaos. We call it self-talk. And far from being a red flag, it might actually be one of the most brilliant, underrated tools we've got for navigating modern life. Because let's be honest, your brain isn't a calm library where thoughts line up neatly and whisper politely. It's a messy marketplace at rush hour. It's passwords, deadlines, grocery lists, and birthdays all screaming at once. It's faces you can't quite place, directions you swore you'd remember, and that one embarrassing thing you said in 8th grade that pops up out of nowhere, like an uninvited guest. Oh, and don't forget the nagging little voice, asking whether you left the stove on, locked the door, or replied to that email your boss sent at midnight. If all of that stayed locked inside, it'd feel like carrying around 50 browser tabs, half of them auto-playing videos you never clicked on, 3 blasting random songs, and 1 tab somewhere hidden that keeps shouting, "Update required." Talking out loud is like finally finding the mute button. It's closing the junk tabs, silencing the chaos, and leaving only the ones you actually need. Each word spoken out loud clears another layer of static until what feels like an avalanche of noise starts sounding like an organized playlist you can actually control. And that's the magic of it. What feels silly on the outside is actually your brain building order from chaos. A whispered reminder, a muttered instruction, even a half-grumbled complaint. They're all little tools for trimming the fat off your mental clutter. That's why self-talk doesn't make you crazy. It keeps you sane. Psychologists have been studying this for decades. They call it self-directed speech. And it doesn't just come in one bland flavor. It's more like an entire menu. Instructional self-talk is when you guide yourself step by step through a task. Okay, pour in the flour, then the sugar. Don't forget the baking powder. It's the voice that keeps you from turning pancakes into concrete. Motivational self-talk is when you give yourself a pep talk. "I've got this. Deep breath. Let's go." That's the little speech that pushes you through a job interview or convinces you to get up and hit the gym at 6 a.m. And then there's emotional self-talk, the raw, unfiltered stuff. That's when you stub your toe for the second time in 5 minutes and mutter, "Are you kidding me?" Or when you slam your laptop shut after Zoom crashes and you groan, "Of course." Perfect timing. But here's the question. Why does saying things out loud help? Why isn't it enough to just think the thought silently? The answer is that your brain isn't just a thinking machine, it's also a listening machine. When your ears hear your own words, it doesn't just register the sound. It creates a feedback loop, a kind of mental echo chamber, where your brain processes the thought again, encoding it more deeply and reinforcing it as if it were a fact delivered by an outside source. That's why teachers tell kids to read out loud. It boosts comprehension and memory. That's why actors rehearse their lines out loud rather than just scanning a script in silence. The words stick better when spoken and heard. That's why athletes call out plays on the field or mutter strategies under their breath. It sharpens focus and keeps the body locked into rhythm. What looks like random noise from the outside is actually reinforcement, a built-in training system. Think of it as turning up the volume on your brain's internal memo. A thought whispered only in your head is easy to lose in the crowd. But once you give it a voice, your brain treats it like an announcement. Suddenly it matters. Take athletes as an example. Serena Williams has been caught on mic countless times talking to herself during matches, sometimes encouraging, sometimes scolding. Come on, Serena, you can do this. That's not for the crowd, it's for her own brain. It's focus distilled into sound. Michael Jordan used to mutter entire plays under his breath. Even heavyweight fighters step into the ring muttering mantras. These aren't quirks, they're performance hacks. And don't think it's just sports. Chess grandmasters, surgeons, pilots, even bomb technicians, fields where precision can mean life or death, all rely on self-talk. A surgeon whispering the steps of a procedure isn't losing it. They're making sure their brain is locked in. A pilot reciting a checklist out loud isn't being silly. They're building redundancy into their focus. Now, let's bring it down to everyday life. You've probably given yourself a pep talk before a big presentation or muttered instructions while trying to assemble IKEA furniture. It feels goofy, but research shows it makes you more accurate. In one study, people asked to search for an object found it faster if they said the object's name out loud. Scissors, 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 than if they kept the word in their head. Your brain literally tunes your vision to the sound. That's why muttering keys, keys, keys actually helps you spot your keys under the pile of mail. But it's not just about memory. Talking to yourself can be emotional triage. You've been there. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly you're in the middle of a one-person courtroom drama. Unbelievable, really? You think that was okay? You're venting, but you're also regulating. Your brain is translating raw adrenaline into structured words, and that cools you down faster than bottling it up. Journaling does the same thing, but self-talk is instant. It's emotional duct tape on the spot. Of course, there's a darker side. That inner critic. The voice that says, "You're not good enough," or "You'll screw this up." That's self-talk too. Left unchecked, it can be brutal. It's like hiring your harshest enemy to be your life coach. Studies have shown that negative self-talk is linked to higher stress, anxiety, and even depression. But here's the silver lining: you can train it. Switch "I always mess up" to "I'm learning how to get better at this." That little shift, repeated over time, rewires your brain. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, the ability to reshape neural pathways, and it works. Kids prove this better than anyone. Watch a child play alone. They narrate everything. Now the dragon comes. Now I climb the castle. Now I'm eating spaghetti in space. Adults call it imagination, but psychologists call it private speech. It's how children learn to problem solve. When a kid says, "Okay, block goes here," while stacking Legos, they're actually strengthening their executive function, the brain's CEO. Over time, that chatter turns inward, becoming the inner voice adults carry. But the function never goes away. We just get better at disguising it. History is full of brilliant minds who leaned into self-talk. Albert Einstein paced rooms muttering equations, working through thought experiments out loud. Nikola Tesla would rehearse his designs in whispered monologues before ever sketching a blueprint. Even Charles Darwin admitted in his journals that he often muttered observations aloud while pacing in his garden. If they were crazy, then maybe crazy is genius. And here's something wild. Self-talk helps with loneliness. Humans are social creatures. We're wired to crave dialogue. When you're alone for too long, your brain starts generating its own. That's why explorers isolated in Antarctica or astronauts on long missions talk to themselves constantly. It's survival. In sensory deprivation studies, people who don't self-talk are more likely to spiral into anxiety. Talking aloud becomes a lifeline. It's your brain saying, "Don't worry, you're not alone. I'm here." It's also a tool for motivation. Ever been on a run and felt your legs screaming to quit? Then you start saying, just one more block. One more. You've got this. That's self-coaching. Research from Michigan State University found that athletes who spoke to themselves in the second person, "You can do this," instead of "I can do this," actually performed better under stress. Turns out, addressing yourself like another person tricks your brain into being a coach instead of just a player. There's also an accountability angle. Saying things out loud forces clarity. Think about arguments. How many times have you been fuming, rehearsing a speech in your head, but the moment you start talking it out, even to yourself, the logic unravels? Words bring structure. They reveal weak spots in your thinking. It's like debugging code by running it out loud. But self-talk isn't always functional. Sometimes it's just companionship. Talking to yourself in the mirror, hyping yourself up, or narrating what you're cooking isn't about efficiency. It's about comfort. It reminds you that your voice matters, even when no one else is listening. And let's not forget humor. Self-talk can be downright hilarious if you pay attention to it. You drop your phone and whisper, "Well, that's the end of me." You burn your toast and mutter, "Of course." Classic me. Sometimes you even argue with the GPS like it's a backseat driver. "No, I'm not turning left. You don't know this neighborhood like I do." These tiny one-liners might feel silly, but they're sanity savers. They're pressure valves in a world that often feels overwhelming. Little jokes your brain throws out to keep the mood lighter. The real trick isn't whether you talk to yourself, it's how you talk to yourself. Negative loops can drag you into the mud, but positive ones can pull you through the storm. Think of self-talk as your personal playlist. What's playing in your head on repeat? Is it a drill sergeant barking at you, ripping apart every move? Or is it a coach pushing you to keep going, even when you're exhausted? One soundtrack leaves you drained, the other builds resilience. And the best part? You get to pick the track. So, is talking to yourself crazy? Not even close. Crazy is ignoring it. Crazy is pretending that inner dialogue doesn't shape your focus, your memory, your emotions, and your resilience. Crazy is letting the wrong script loop endlessly without ever changing the station. Talking to yourself isn't a glitch, it's a feature. It's proof that your brain is alive, adapting, protecting, and sometimes just entertaining you when the world feels too heavy. Whether it's finding your keys, prepping for a big conversation, or simply getting through another lonely night, your voice is one of your strongest tools. And the world's greatest thinkers, athletes, and creators have leaned on it for centuries. Proof that the inner monologue isn't weakness, it's strategy. So the next time someone catches you muttering in the cereal aisle, don't feel embarrassed, smile, because you're not crazy. You're just tuning your brain, fine-tuning it like an instrument. And maybe, just maybe, you're keeping yourself a little saner than the people who never talk at all. If this made you feel a little less weird about all those conversations you've been having with yourself, hit that subscribe button. I'll be diving into more of the hidden science behind everyday quirks, the psychology of what makes us tick, and the stories that prove we're all a little stranger than we pretend. Don't silence that inner voice. Give this channel a voice in your feed too.